Wait. Hendo.
G'day.
Hey, mate.
What's going on?
Oh, fair bit, actually.
Look at that old school Black Hop shirt you've got there.
It's cool, isn't it? I was looking for the red flannel and I realized it's actually being washed. So I've got this was well before we could afford actual merch. So Eddie just went and bought a bunch of patches and we sewed them on flannels.
Yeah.
So this is it. This is pretty rare.
Is that your other flannel? So you've only got two.
I've do, yeah. I've got.
Do you brew in that?
No, God no. Only the red one.
Okay, good.
Yeah. No, this is just for show.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's been happening, man?
Oh, well, should we start with, you got a beer?
Yeah, I do have a beer.
What are you working with?
I've got something really special for a number of reasons. So I've actually got another Helios beer this week. So I've got the Helios Cerberus canned today, not released until the 21st, so next Thursday. And that's the Helios BrewDog collab. And it's kind of special because it's like it's one of my TAFE students it's his first commercially released beer recipe. Oh, that's cool. And I stopped by Helios after class today and he was all really stoked about it. And so basically it's a brut, it says it's dry red IPA, but it's basically a brut red IPA. And he told me what hops were in it, and now I've forgotten. I saw a photo of it on the internet last night. It looked an amazing red, and I'm just going to drink it out of the can.
Oh, Hendo, you got to stop doing this. You got a beautiful red IPA. You got to at least see it.
Cheers. What do you got?
Yes. I got a special beer as well. This one here is the 2021 A-Team beer.
Oh my God. That beer is good.
I haven't tried this yet.
I'm talking about this one.
Oh, that one. Okay,
it's
good.
Fucking great.
I mean, I wish I could see it in the glass there, but that's okay. You do you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this beer, we have our investors, which we call the Alpha Team or the A-Team, and the Alpha Team is too long for the label.
Yep.
And every year we get them in and we brew a beer with them. So last year we brewed A-Team IPA of some sort, and this year, well, actually last year we did all A hops, I think. So Amarillo, Azacca, all of those. And then this year we did alpha hops. So we got Amarillo, Laurel, Pacifica, Hallertau Blanc, and Azacca. So it spells out.
Why are they
alpha.
all? What? Oh, okay. ALPHA.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. And so what we do with this beer is only Alpha Team members can order it or can buy it from the tap rooms, but then we'll put a keg on at each tap room that anyone else can try as well. So,
well, that's me at a future visit to Black Ops 3.
Yeah, but there's only a 20-litre keg at each venue, so it's not going to last too long. It might be gone already. We only put it on today.
Oh my God, Edsy. He's done so well with this.
I wish I could see it. See, this is, but you know, we got a YouTube now, right?
Yeah. Are we on YouTube?
We're on YouTube and we got a subscriber. Cheers.
What? Cheers, man.
Do you want to know who our first subscriber is on YouTube?
Yeah.
It's Ryan Fullerton, who's a brewer who was at Bob's. I think he's somewhere else now, but yeah, local Gold Coast or now Gold Coast brewer.
Yeah, awesome.
Cheers, Ryan, for being our first and only YouTube
Thank
subscriber.
I'm not even subscribed. And again, I wasn't even on the mail list last week.
You didn't even. Oh, I got a mailing list update as well. We've got 13 people. We've got some cool people on there too. We've got well, I don't know if we're supposed to reveal who's on our email list, but we do have Andrew from Ironbark Hill, Rusty from the Rusty and Flash Show, Annalise from Madocke, Simpo, the first Black Ops investor. So we've got some. We haven't sent an email yet, but we've got some cool people on there.
Oh well, it's good. Welcome aboard. How do people get onto the mail list if they want to get onto the mail list?
Well, they go to bossandthebrewer.com.
Is it that easy?
It's that easy. It's unbelievable. Oh, MailChimp makes it very easy. Did you see, maybe not relevant to this podcast, but I'm going to Google this number. MailChimp sold recently. They were fully bootstrap company, which means they never got any outside funding.
They sold to Intuit or something, didn't they?
Yeah, they sold to Intuit a month ago for $12 billion.
We're in the wrong business, mate.
Isn't that amazing?
Mm.
I had a friend who started a local email software thing, like a competitor to MailChimp, way back when I was at QR. So it would have been 15 years ago. And it was such a small market back then. Like people would actually buy software for their own servers to send their own emails. I used to do it with my web agency clients. And it's kind of before software as a service. So like there wasn't that many people doing this. But yeah, MailChimp just took over. But there's so many companies that did it and did really well. I don't know how her company ended up going, but just crazy, isn't it? I mean, imagine starting a company with no funding and selling it for $12 billion.
I would probably take a holiday.
I would take a holiday, and I would also just ignore any comments from people saying that I sold out.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd probably, just wipe a tear from my eye with $100 bill or something and say, you haters gonna hate.
Yeah. Well, because I think apparently that founder was another one that was kind of like, I'll never sell, but it's like, you never sell within 12 billion. So
12 billion. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. What are you working on at the moment, Hendo? I always forget to ask you at the start of the show what you're actually doing.
Oh, lots of stuff at the moment. So Tape's keeping me pretty busy at the moment. So we've just had we have two classes run at the same time, a part-time and a full-time. And so this week I met our new part-time cohort. Two of them work for you.
Who are we working with?
Work for you. Is it Ella and what's his name? I can't remember his name. Oh, anyway, they're the new students start this week. That was pretty good. It's like it's crazy, man. It's like I'm only part-time working for Tape. It's not a full-time gig for me.
We've got a lot of people like Ella who are not in like in other parts of the business who want to be brewers. It's so many women at we've got a lot of women brewers at Black Ops and other people that work for us or is kind of on the outskirts who want to get into it. It's mental. It's mental how different it was to when we started.
I think it's good that there's now these new pathways for people to become brewers and get a formal education. That's the thing. Well, speaking of formal education, look at this.
Oh, I know what this is.
I got my TAE, mate.
Look at that.
So we're TAE buddies now.
Yeah.
You got your TAE.
I do, yeah. I used to work for the government, so it was very easy to get certified in things because they would just pay for everything. But I imagine you had to pay for some of that yourself, did you? Or did they help you out?
Yeah, no, all of it.
Yeah. That's good though. It's always good to get a qualification.
It was hard work. It was pretty hard work. So it was like 2 weeks in a classroom.
Yeah.
Just intensive, just get it done and that sort of thing. And then this massive assignment, which they called a major portfolio. So you had to put together like a unit of competency and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then I had to go back again for 2 presentation days to give 2 lectures over 2 days and then watch other people give lectures.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
I'm glad to see the back of it, mate.
Yes. I mean, it is pretty dry, some of that stuff, isn't it? We when we worked at QR, we worked in training and development was actually an RTO, just that division of QRs and RTO, so they could deliver things like Cert 4s and that kind of thing.
Oh, look, it's good to have, not only because I'm working at TAFE and that sort of thing, but because it helps me in my business with Rockstar Brewer as well, because I do a lot of coaching and training and all that sort of stuff. It helps me be better at that job. And it was fascinating. We've got a really interesting vocational educational training system here in Australia, and it works pretty well and keeps getting better. Yeah,
it's interesting, the Cert 4 thing. I don't really understand fully how it works, but like I've done a couple of Cert 4s in different things, and they definitely have very varying levels of complexity to them. Like the one I did, I did one in project management, which I'm pretty sure was only like a 3 or 4 day course. And I did another one in multimedia, which was like a 1 year or more, like really intensive course. And at the end of it, I still just had a Cert 4. It was just in a different topic.
They have like this thing called the AQF, which is the Australian Qualification Framework. And so there's different levels. So you have Certificate 1, Certificate 2, Certificate 3, Cert 4, and then it goes Diploma,
Advanced
Bachelor,
Diploma, and
Bachelor, and then it's like
postgraduate.
I think it's Honours, Master, Graduate Certificate, Masters, Doctorate, PhD and that sort of thing. So
why is there such a vast difference between a Cert 4 in something like project management to something like multimedia? It was like one was almost like a degree and one was like a weekend course.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because there's supposed to be like, with each course, there's supposed to be like a certain number of hours input into it and that sort of thing, So with the certificate, in terms of like your class time and self-study and that sort of thing. So the Certificate 3 in food processing brewing is actually 600 hours total time.
Yeah, see, that's crazy. And Certificate 3, you would think, based on general logic, would be a level below a Certificate 4. But
it is, yes. Yeah, it is. But it's basically, the Certificate 3 in brewing teaches people to become brewery operators. There is talk of a Certificate 4 or a diploma in brewing happening. That's going to be a couple of years away easily, where we train people to be head brewers.
That's cool.
So that's all in the future. But there's moves and happening in the background, and
I think it's really cool. I mean, how far has it come since when we started or when you started?
Well, exactly. How did you become a brewer when you started out? Was like, I was lucky. I did the postgraduate degree at University of Ballarat, or Federation University as it's called now. Lots of people have started just by volunteering, and I think that pathway of volunteering at a brewery is really over now.
Pretty tough because there's so many safety concerns and so many people that want to work for a brewery. It's hard to just let people in to come and work for you for free.
You can't. There has to be a contract, like a work agreement, that sort of thing. And you just can't have people go into a brewery and.
There is, though, I will say, and it sounds like we just found our first topic because this wasn't on the list, but thinking of it, we did just write an article this week on how to become a brewer, and you're the best guy to talk to about it. So that can be our first topic.
Here we go.
I was just going to say, a lot of the guys in our company, like if you're getting into a company that's growing like ours is, a lot of the guys or girls that want to get into production will do like what Ella's doing and get into the business in a different area and just kind of, because once you're working for a business, it's just the age-old foot in the door thing, isn't it? But like once you're
absolutely
working in a business, people can see you're a great worker. They can see you're ambitious, you're friendly, you want to get into brewing. It's such low risk for us to be like, this person, go and do this course, learn how to brew. You're perfect, as opposed to just advertising again and just, who you're going to get from outside the organization. You have no idea. So there is still a pathway, maybe not volunteering, but there's a pathway to get into an organization doing one thing and then end up doing another.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's like, someone like Ella can just continue to work in, her current role in the tap rooms and that sort of thing. And, as and when Black Hop sees fit, she can move into production and that sort of thing. And there's no pressure. That when she does ultimately make the transition, that she's got a bit of floor time, working in the Brew Lab brewery. She's got a good, level of consciousness around safety, which is super important.
Yeah.
Generally graduates of the TAFE Queensland program, and indeed all the other TAFEs around Australia, they can hit the ground running. They're still green. That's the thing that you still got to, any potential brewer that's looking to hire a graduate of the program, you've got to be mindful that they're still green.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But they're not
potentially.
You're not starting
in a brewery, right?
You're not exactly, but you're not starting from zero.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's a.
That's that you can't expect any more than that. If you're hiring a student in any discipline, especially a new one, based on having some education but not experience, they're going to be green. That's
absolutely
part of the deal.
And I think the next thing for, at least here in Queensland, is things like traineeships and apprenticeships and that sort of thing. So, we've got a survey going out through the IBA in the next couple of weeks, which is about giving another pathway to get the Certificate 3 and doing it on the job.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
And so basically where, myself and my teaching partner, Kate, can go into, can go and assess people who are in their own workplace.
Wow. No kind of classroom-based stuff?
Or you still got to do the knowledge part. So you still have to do like lectures and exams and that sort of thing. But as far as your skills, the skills part, so when you do vocational education training, there's you get skills and knowledge. So knowledge is basically doing an exam and being able to learn and know the theory, and then skills is actually being observed doing the job.
So how does that work currently if you don't have that?
We do have that, but we don't. We have that with the students who are in the Cert 3 now, but they're doing all of their skills in the Brew Lab brewery.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Right. So they're getting all their observations done there.
Yeah.
But there's another way in which people who are currently working in the industry can go and have all their observations done in their own workplace.
That's nice. Yeah. That's
pretty good. So all these things are coming online. I think it's really, really cool. I'm looking forward to what the future holds. I'm enjoying the teaching. It's pretty cruisy. We totally stuffed up a beer today, and it's like there's no stress.
Yeah, it's a good lesson. It's going to happen. It's going to happen in the real world.
We stuffed up a beer today, right? So one of the things that I sort of drum into, and those that know me as a brewer, know that making a beer with a quality focus is about hitting the numbers and hitting the targets and that sort of thing. And so we made our Froth Rookies. We have our own brand called Froth Rookies Brewing Company. We made our Froth Rookies lager. I said this is the hardest beer to make, and we thought we hit the numbers on brew day, which is amazing. Everyone's high-fiving after the brew day and all that sort of thing. And then we went and checked the alcohol today, and the alcohol was way under. And I was like, oh, what's going on here? Anyway, so we did a little bit of a root cause analysis thing, and it turned out that our handheld density meter was misconfigured.
Yeah,
and gave us the wrong number on brew day, and so the alcohol was a little bit under, but
How far under?
It come in at 4.2. It's supposed to be 4.8. It's 0.5%. So
okay.
It's out of spec. So, so we can't sell it. We can't sell it in a can, but it's still going to go into a can that the students would probably buy it themselves and drink it themselves. And so we can't sell it to the public, basically. So
yeah. Oh, well, that's disappointing, but probably a good lesson.
Oh, look, but that's the beauty of it, right? And that's why I really like brewing in the TAFE brewery, is that, if you make mistakes, that's part of the learning experience. It's a learning outcome. You don't learn from your successes; you learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
And we just sort of talked it out, and I said, they were really worried about it, because they, these guys, they give a shit, and I said, well, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're just going to, we talked about what the possibilities were, and so we had some hypotheses as to what could happen, what may have happened. And we just dive through each of the things, and we end up having a look at the portable dits. The Alkalizer had a gravity reading, and then the portable density meter didn't match up with it. And I said, well, that's the issue, because and so that's obviously been reading wrong. There you go.
I wonder because we've had this sort of thing as well, in small batches. I wonder what, really small breweries that don't have some of this, not every brewery would have an alkalizer, right?
Yeah.
So there's probably, if it's, obviously if it's under, it's not good. You kind of, you're kind of ripping people off. But if it's over, there's bigger problems because you're giving people more alcohol than you're legally allowed to.
Well, no, you have to be on because you've got food standards.
Right, but if you can't measure it, if you've got the equipment to measure it pretty efficiently.
It's a real issue with alcohol because there's, according to the ATO, if you're a brewery that makes more than 100,000 litres of beer per year, you're not allowed to use the gravity shift formula. So take the starting gravity and the finishing gravity, and then you can do a formula and work out the alcohol. You're actually not allowed to do that. They don't really enforce it.
Yeah.
But you're technically not allowed to do that. You actually have to measure alcohol directly, either through, you can do a distillation, you can have an alkalizer and all sorts of stuff. But that equipment's either very time consuming to use or very expensive.
How much is an alkalizer worth?
Cheap one, 30 grand.
Yeah, see, no brewery doing 50,000 litres or under, or 100,000 litres or under is going to have one of those things.
No, exactly.
I don't think we.
Well, that's the other thing that I've been working on at the moment. I want to make beer analysis services more accessible to craft breweries and also help to make them compliant. So that's a new project that I'm working on at the moment, and that'll be sort of coming out pretty soon, I think. So
nice.
Yeah,
that sounds like a good idea to me.
Yeah, exactly.
I should have said at the start, we've got a guest lined up for this show.
We do.
This is your once again you're doing well. Actually, before that, did you have any feedback from last week? I got a lot of messages from people saying they listened and they enjoyed it, which was nice.
Yeah, same. I got so many people just going, "Oh my god, I listened to the show. That was really good. That was really good. Mazen was awesome." I'm like, Mazen was awesome.
Yeah. Hey, how about the Facebook one where they listened to the podcast with Hendo and Mazen and it was great? I'm like, hey, what about me? Jesus.
Yeah. So, look, Maz always is a bit of a draw card, but and people really enjoyed the conversation. As very insightful, has a very strong, opinion, and states his case very well, and changes his opinion if the facts change. That's what I like about Maz.
I like that too. You do have to be like that. You can't be held to your past beliefs forever. You need to be able to change.
No, that's right.
But I did, on that episode, how I said he's the guy that rings you when you text him. He did ring me the next day.
Did he? Yes, he rang me too.
So, dude, stop ringing. It's just too much. I ignored it.
Well, he sent me a message. He goes, "Address?" ?
Oh yes, and good.
I went, okay. I was like, oh my god, he's going to send me some beer, and so I sent him my home address.
Yeah,
and I said, "Are you going to send me some beer?" He goes, "No, I want your email address, fuckhead."
Oh, wow.
But he put that into ShipStation because he sent me some beer. So
good. Okay. Yes. I was going to say that because he sent me some beer as well. I got an update today saying it'll be a week or two, but it was that beer that he drank on the show. So I'm super keen to try.
The Lucky 13. Mine actually arrived at 4:30 this afternoon. So I would have drunk it. I would be drinking it here, except it's still warm. It only just got in the fridge. So
you bastard. I didn't get mine.
Yeah.
That would be good. That would be a good one to have on the show. But I'll give one to Eddie because he loves his lagers and pilsners. So that'll be nice.
Man, I haven't had a beer with Eddie in ages, man.
Neither have I, to be honest. It's been a while. He got married this week, so that's news. But yeah, we've actually this last couple of weeks has been interesting. We've all had holidays, well, except for me, but I may have one soon. But everyone else has had holidays, which is almost the first time in our history where we've sort of just said, I'm having a week off. Like Guzzy's barely left Black Ops since we started. Eddie struggles to take time off. I don't think I've taken. I think I took a week off once. I think in 5 years. I don't know however long it's been.
Are you going to have a holiday or?
Well, I don't know. At some point.
You need to take that car of yours for a very long drive.
Yeah, I could do something like that. But yeah, Ian was away for the Indies for that week, and then Govs was away for a week. Eddie's away last week. So yeah, it's actually
your turn, mate. Your turn.
Cool. Yeah. My turn soon. All right. Well, I can see. So do you want to introduce the next guest? Because he's ready to go on the Zoom.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. So this week we have a very special guest who reached out to me this week It was in relation to our very first episode when we were talking about Paktechs and the environmental impact and that sort of thing. And so our guest today is Evin Craney from who's the national sales manager for Bright Brewery down in Victoria. And he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I listened to your first episode of your podcast. I've been doing a little bit of stuff with regards to Paktechs and recyclability and that sort of thing." And I just had a bit of a chat about it. And it turns out he's done quite a lot of work with it.
Okay.
And so I sort of dropped you a message and said, we should get him on the show and chat about this because, the recyclability of Paktechs is, it's something that's on every brewer's mind when it comes to things like sustainability. And so we thought we'd get Evin on and have a bit of a chat. And
awesome. And you forgot to tell me who he was or where he's from, but that's okay. We got there eventually.
Evin Craney Bright Brewery, national sales manager.
No, you told me now, but you didn't tell me at the time. I was like, you have to actually tell me who this person is, but that's fine.
Oh, didn't I? Hey, Ev, how you going, man?
G'day, fellas. How are we?
Hey, mate.
Not bad, mate. Not bad. What's been happening?
Living in Melbourne, a whole lot of bloody nothing, to be honest with you.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's been a bit like this the past 18 months. I wish I was where you boys are.
Well, it's definitely like it's okay here, and I definitely feel for you guys, and it's absolutely amazing. Hey, Dan.
Sorry, I'm Instagramming this because I'm trying to do two things at once. I apologize.
No, before we start, can you hit the little button that lets me share screen? So if you just go to the security
power.
Yeah. If you go hit the security button down the bottom and you go allow participants to share screen, because I wanted to show Ev this photo. I'm really proud of. It's got Ev in it.
Oh no!
There you go. What
okay.
Are we going to get cancelled?
No. You're not going to get cancelled.
Okay.
Let me just show you this photo, mate. Ev, do you remember this here? Let me just share my screen there. Can you see that there?
Oh wow!
Oh, that's old Hendo.
What? How long ago was that?
I believe that was holy moly, yeah, the 21st of October, 2015.
Wow,
that was
2015.
I don't remember that night.
Well, neither do I. That was, I think that was part of. I think it was Sydney Craft Beer Week.
I think it might have been.
And
you're right.
We were at this is at the Union Hotel.
Union Hotel.
Yeah, the Union Hotel in Newtown. And do you know why this photo is? I find this photo so special.
Why is that?
Do you know any of the other faces in that photo?
I recognise Bevan, formerly of West City.
That's right. Yes. And do you know who the guy in the packed shirt is?
Oh, you've really put me on the spot here. I know the face, not the name.
That's Kevin Hinkston. So basically, we've got Ev, Kev, and Bev. I was so stoked when I got that photo because I'm like, I was sitting there and I'm just drinking beers and I'm like, oh, there's Ev. Oh, there's Kev. Hey, there's Bev. Let's get them together and get a photo.
So this night actually is this leads into one of the hardest days of my life the following day, because after about, I want to say 10 p.m. that night, I have no recollection of what happens. But I do remember waking up at about 6 a.m. in Fraser from Exit's Airbnb, laying on the floor of the bathroom for my alarm going off because I'd been double booked and had to fly to Brisbane that morning to do an event at Brewski. Never been more hungover in my life. Barely made it to the airport. Ended up getting delayed for 6 hours on my flight. Didn't sleep the whole time. Got to Brewski that night, turned to Matt and I said, I can't drink tonight. And he basically told me to go fuck myself.
Matt would say that. And
he would say that. And he would give you a stout.
You pretty much. Yeah. And then, I think that night finished about 4 a.m. And many things happened, which I'm not going to go into because this might not be a PG podcast, but I still don't think I need that in the world.
Wow. I feel like I want to know what happened, but also just a reminder that we support the responsible service of alcohol.
Correct.
Absolutely. This is in the early craft beer days when none of us knew how to handle our piss, right?
100%. Yeah, Hendo was a little bit more seasoned than I was.
Oh man, I'm looking at all these old photos, man. We all look so much younger and less wrinklier and all that sort of thing. And it's
on that topic, I found out today. Like Eddie and Govs didn't even tell me this, but Govs randomly messaged another staff member and was like, "Oh, I've got some exciting news. Me and Eddie have been nominated for the Young Entrepreneurs Award."
What?
And I mean, where's the fucking gratitude? Because now I'm over 40. I'm no longer.
You don't qualify.
I don't qualify.
Oh man!
And I just thought that would come down with me. You know what I mean? Like we're in this together. We're not included. We're not counted. That's fine. Like we've won every other year. We've won our category. Mm-hmm. But no, they're going without me. Those bastards.
Is there a senior entrepreneurs?
Oh, dude, don't do me like that.
Do you just move up to the next version, or
no? You got to exactly. That's what I was going to say. You got to have a little bit of tact. It's the Masters series.
No, the Masters is just every other entrepreneur. Like those guys, those ones are making real money. Like the only one we have a chance of winning is the junior one.
Yeah,
it's not like sports. It's the opposite.
Ev, what are you drinking there, mate?
I've got, where is it? The Grassy Knoll Midnight Unicorn Oat Cream Black IPA.
Wow. Jeez. Are you drinking that out of a glass?
I am. I'm not Hendo. I'm not a heathen. I'm not going to drink my Imperial Stouts out of the can.
Good. Any good?
It's actually really good. It was recommended to me. I can't say I've had a lot of Grassy Knoll in Victoria, but it's really nice. It's got a very classic black IPA. It's not as creamy as you think for an oat cream, but I guess an oat cream black IPA almost doesn't really make sense anyway. So
there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, no, it's actually really good. But I'm breaking my rule. I try not to drink during the weekdays, but I broke it for you boys. So
oh, nice. Thanks, you. Yeah, well, man. I was going to tell you normally on the show we have a beer, but you probably assumed that given that.
I did listen to some previous episodes. I was one of the first 12, I think, listeners.
Yes.
So
very good. All right. Well, let's talk about Paktechs.
Yeah. So I guess, you know, what you reached out to me a few days ago and you listened to the first episode of Boss and the Brewer and talking about Paktechs. And I think if I remember correctly, I was sort of saying that there's a sense of a guilt that I have as a brewer using Paktechs, because even though they're made from recycled material, they're not necessarily recycled after they're used.
Yeah.
And, you know, lots of brewers have tried different things to be able to recycle or reuse them. And then you reached out and said that that you'd been doing some work in that space to sort of, you know, complete the loop. Tell us a bit about what you've been doing there, mate.
Yeah, so it's I'll try and keep it a short story because it's overly long and complicated. Basically, start of the year, was asked a question by a friend of mine. She sort of said, I think it was highlighted during the pandemic last year with the home deliveries. Everyone started, I guess, getting a lot more beer delivered to their house and started seeing just a buildup of Paktechs. And I was asked the question, you know, what can we do to recycle these? And it sort of dawned on me there wasn't really an answer. And I had the same problem as well. I had a mountain of them in my house. So went down the rabbit hole, I guess, to try and figure out, well, what we could do as a brewery. So as Bright Brewery, who I work for, to see if there was something we could implement in. And we came up with the idea of, and it wasn't a new idea, it had been done, you know, anecdotally from breweries around the world, and especially in Australia. It's not something brand new, but basically what we did is we made an investment, quite expensive, actually, surprisingly, just for bloody boxes, but to get about 50 custom, big, we call them dump bins, not a great name, but 50 of these boxes that we branded up and go through independent retail in Victoria. And the whole concept was punters go in, drop their used Paktechs off, we would pick them up, and then we would take them back to the brewery for recycling. So that was really the early days. We thought we'll create an avenue for at least some place for them to go. And then what we started to find was that, you know, for every one we would use, we almost would have 20 extra. And then you start building on some issues of, you know, the stickers on Paktechs, which I'm pretty sure are put on with concrete because they're just almost impossible to get off. Yeah. And you'll have the odd broken one, different sizes, different colors.
Different colors.
So
did you specify what goes into the box? Like, were they supposed to be only your brewery or?
No, we opened to everyone. So it was it was fully fledged. You could drop whatever you like in. What I didn't also count on was that Seltzer now uses them, and they're completely different sizes to what we use.
God, of course.
So what we found was we just immediately they went out and they were getting full. It was weekly pickups, and it was just amazing how much were coming back. And then we were discussing as a team how we could best handle that, and we realized that the plan is still to reuse them, but the man hours it was going to take was going to cost us more money than purchasing them. But that was fine because that was part of it. As a business, we have a sustainability mindset. But then we knew we were going to have just this absolute mountain that was just going to keep going and going and going. So we had to try and figure out a system, I guess, to close that loop and actually create a proper recycling. And once we started going down that path, we found that there was nowhere in Australia currently that can actually recycle the Paktechs. So
are they supposed to be recyclable, or
they are fully recyclable? The biggest issue, and this is something that I've learned, is that the black ones in particular are actually really hard. So the coloring in the Paktech is carbon black, and it's such a dense black that infrared machinery can't pick it up. So when they go into recycling machines, they get spit out. Right. And basically local councils had figured this out as well. So they were saying, you can't recycle these. So it just ended up people putting them into landfill, into their normal bins. There's no way to do it.
So they're made from recycled plastic, but they're basically never being recycled themselves. Unless they're being reused.
Yeah, and Australia in particular, that's how it works. So in America, they have a system to sort of combat this, but Paktech is obviously based in America. They use a secondary business here to sell it. So they actually sell it on to a wholesaler, and then it sort of spreads out, as you fellas would know. So they didn't have a system here to close the loop. From there, what I've sort of done and what we've done as a brewery is we've reached out to Paktech and basically said, hey, what can we do here? I'll talk about Paktech at End's Length. They're actually an amazing company to work for. The system that we're putting in place genuinely hurts their profit line. It makes no sense for them in terms of business strategy, but they have been completely on board in creating a sustainability system here in Australia. So
that's good. But I think if they're thinking long term, it probably does help their bottom line, because there can't be a very long future in just plastic that never gets reused.
So this is so basically what I think. Some of it they didn't realize probably how bad it was over here. And it's a little bit of the growing market in Australia. They're getting used more. They're seeing all this volume coming out, and not being boots on ground, I guess it does stop them from seeing that what's coming up. And I guess it hadn't really been addressed at a large level. I think anecdotally, we all knew. I think every brewery knew, every retailer knew, and consumers knew as well. But there wasn't, I guess, a collective discussion around it. So through Paktech, we've now started working with Visi, and we're in the process of sort of finalizing all this to create a closed loop system where Visi actually have one piece of machinery, I believe in New South Wales, that they can manually recycle these, the Paktechs with. So basically what we're in the process now, and I reached out to Hendo as well, and this is something that I've been working with the IBA around as well, is a sort of national rollout scheme that would be hopefully an opt-in for all breweries, which would basically be a cost-neutral system. Paktech and Visi have basically offered to supply the bins at no cost, as much as needed. They'll handle the transportation to and from. And the idea is that, say for yourself, for Black Hops, you guys will say, listen, we have this LGA, we have 30 stores we think we can put them in. Can we get 30 delivered? We'll handle that region. That is our region to work on. We will reuse what we can, but what we can't reuse, Visi will actually collect themselves, bring back.
Right. How do you reuse them?
Well, it's manually sorting. So the ones you can reuse.
But which ones can you reuse?
So for us, we can reuse anything that's not damaged. And thankfully, Paktechs are pretty sturdy, as we sort of all know.
Yeah.
So 4s and 6-packs that aren't stickered tend to be the way to go. The stickers do create actually quite a
But every independent bottle shop with a 4-pack on it would have a sticker on the Paktech, wouldn't they?
You'd be surprised. And I say that working from a brewery that only just started putting stickers on theirs too. After about 3 years.
So what do you do for barcodes for indies? Just a business card?
We just don't. We do it the old school, scan 1, press 6, and now we have. I guess we've been fighting that for as long as we could, but we sort of got to a point where, we sort of knew we had to get there.
Well, maybe a new system for barcoding would like if the independent bottle shops want to have a book of barcodes as opposed to a barcode on the Paktech, then smaller brewers, could potentially not put barcodes on 4-packs. But then the problem is the majors, you need barcodes on the
and it's very slow at the checkout too.
Yeah. And this is one of those things, again, we didn't consider this when we started. This was started as a really small thing that we thought would be a little thing that we could do, I guess, to help out and benefit. And it's just become this sort of juggernaut that keeps on rolling and rolling and rolling. But basically what we're just trying to do, I guess, is create a system that there can be a closed loop. There can be something to do with them. And the worst thing, you can just imagine how many of these are ending up in landfill. Because there isn't any...
all of them.
Yeah, unless, there's somewhat a reuse scheme. And I think you mentioned in the previous podcast that I think you guys took them back at the brewery. People could bring them back in.
But it's the same as your situation. It's kind of like when a staff member's free, they can sit there and try and peel 4-packs off Paktechs, but it's just it's pretty hard to do at scale.
Yeah. And the big thing is, this is still small business. Obviously, in craft beer, you're gonna have scales of breweries from your really small literage to your big literage. So depending on how much you use, we wanted to. Well, what I've really sort of been the mindset of is creating this cost neutral system. So obviously, if you were to do it at the level that we're doing it now, it's a pretty ad hoc system. If we were just to reuse everyone we were, the manpower and the labor alone would far outweigh the benefit of the free reuse, I guess, of just collecting them. So we're trying to create a system here where the breweries can jump in, they can solve the problem. There's a way to recycle them at the end. So there is a proper way to say, we know definitively they can go here, they can get recycled. We have a spot. If you want to reuse them,
I interrupted your process before. So the process was that the brewery, you take some of them and reuse them where you can, and then if you can't, I assume they go to this machine in Visi.
Exactly, yeah. So Visi would themselves collect, bring it back, and then they would handle that. And there's also been talk around the possibility of being able to actually manufacture the bins that these would go in from the recycled Paktechs as well. So there's a few things we're sort of working on. This is we're coming to the end of probably about a 10, 11 month conversation around this. So we're just trying to get the specifics on it. But I guess for me, the big thing was about actually closing that loop, because when we started, as I said, we thought it was going to be small. We thought, we'll get a few and it'll be this, that, or the other. And then all of a sudden, I'd have 50,000 in my storage unit waiting to go back to Bright next time I travel back up. I've probably got, probably 10,000 in my car right now that I've picked up in the past 2 days.
That's a fucking fire hazard, dude.
Oh man, it's insane. Yeah. And I got a box today that wasn't secure and I turned a corner and they just all went everywhere. And I thought,
oh my God, wow.
I'll leave that till tomorrow. That can be a tomorrow problem.
Oh man. What has Visi done if the color of the black Paktechs is the issue when it comes to recyclability? What have Visi done to overcome that?
I don't think anything. And I think this is one of the problems that we found really from this was, reaching out to Paktech was a bit of a Hail Mary pass. I sort of got to a point where I didn't know what more I could do on the program. So I thought, I'm just going to find a couple of emails. I'm going to shoot some generic emails out and see if someone replies. Luckily, straight away, within probably an hour or two, I got an email back from the head of sustainability and the head of marketing. And they have been fantastic since day one. They didn't realize that there wasn't a proper level of recycling. I think they were under the impression there was a system in place. I don't know if they looked into it fully.
How could they not realize that?
I know.
We're just focused on the US, mate.
Yeah, and in fairness to them, they have a US program in place, so they actually have a fully. I don't think every state, but I know it's a working initiative. But it's going through majority of the states, and they've just moved into Canada, I believe, as well, which is basically this system run by them over there. I think not having a base in Australia to see the issue and be running it themselves has.
So what do they do in America? They have their own machines and things, do they?
They do, yeah. And then they have their own program where I think their own staff members manage logistical networks of collection and things like that. And then in states where they don't have that presence, they've done a partnership program with other breweries where basically breweries become collection spots. So say, for example, Black Hops would be a collection spot for Brisbane. And, all the smaller breweries that might not have the space could come and they could drop them off at you and you would be that depot.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So that's the angle that they've sort of worked on there, and it's something we've discussed possibly bringing out over here as well.
Yeah, we could.
It's just a chain.
Sure. That sounds like a cool idea.
So,
like the bigger brewers kind of being the central location for the smaller ones.
Yeah.
Sense.
So in the US, right, Paktech would be running this closed loop system, bringing Paktechs back in. I suppose they get broken down or melted down and reformed again to make new Paktechs and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What do you know what what Visi are turning those recycled Paktechs into?
So currently they're not recycling any of them. So the plan, I guess we're now at that stage of once the machinery is up and running, we actually haven't done a batch yet because we haven't hit their minimum quantity numbers.
But they're collecting them and storing them. Is that right?
So currently I'm collecting and storing them. And this is part of, I guess, the national rollout plan is once we sort of get to a level, it has to make economic sense, I guess, for them to use this machinery. I think it's a very special piece of equipment that they don't run as standard. So there's a minimum quantity amount that it sort of gets it there. In saying that, they've been pretty verbally so far. We're trying to get this written because I understand how these things work. Get them to basically pick up and store till they get to that point. So they'll handle the storage of them until they have to use the machinery. The next question, I guess, is what they do afterwards. So I think I still haven't got a firm answer on that. That's more about, we've discussed the bins possibly being created from there. Currently, they're not manufactured in Australia. I do believe it's probably something Visi's looking at anyway. So whether or not that sort of helps, I guess, their ability to go and say, hey, we should be sort of manufacturing these now if we're closing the loop. I definitely think it's the cost benefit analysis for them to take on this program. But yeah, currently there's no end loop for them. There's no recycling place for them. In fairness to even Paktech, initially we weren't even sure we could do this through Visi. Visi weren't even sure they would have the equipment for it. And there was discussion around, worst case scenario, do we just fill containers and send them back to the US? But then there's carbon footprint on that. And, so it's you're stealing from one to pay the other. And it's been a very complicated system, unfortunately. But I feel like, over time, we've started to develop the inroads for this. And, the reason I reached out to you, Hendo, is the more light we bring to it, I guess the more light we can shed on it, the more people that can hear about this. Because it's still very much a small Victorian-based program that Bright Brewery is running. The more people understand it, the more people get behind it, the more, I guess, oomph we have to sort of go out and say, let's fix this problem.
I think it's a great idea because I think we're all kind of sitting around knowing that like everyone's kind of uncomfortable with the idea that we're putting this massive plastic thing on every single 4-pack and forgetting about it. And we're kind of looking at all the alternatives that come through. And like I've done the same thing. I remember I emailed James from Stone & Wood, who's the sustainability guy. It must have been 3 or 4 years ago. And I was kind of like what's the best option around this stuff and why? And he helped a little bit, but at the end of the day, for us, like Paktechs was just the only real solution.
Yeah. Well, shout out to James, who's actually who helped out with this program as well. So when I went to IBA and sort of said, hey, this is what we're doing, we want to push this out nationally. As a business, we don't really have the capacity to do that in the format that we are. IBA is obviously set up for programs like this. James put his hand up straight away and was the first one that really sort of came out and said, well, if we're going to do this, the loop has to be closed. We're not going to greenwash this system. And has been a huge advocate and a huge help in actually doing that. But again, it's a question I think he's been asked so many times and didn't have the answer to. And it's not an easy answer. It's shockingly difficult, which surprised me. I probably came in thinking this is going to be a really simple problem to solve, and then completely sort of turning around my mindset of sustainability and recycling in this country. It was quite shocking, to be honest with you.
Well, that's very cool. It's cool that Stone & Wood do walk the talk with some of this stuff. I mean, the fact that they even have a sustainability person is pretty cool, I reckon.
Yeah.
The thing I was going to say is it's nice to know that, like, because obviously people are working on alternatives to Paktech, but it's good to know there's also people working on the possibility that the Paktech could be a better solution. Like at the moment, practically it's the best, but environmentally it's not.
Yeah.
So Ev, tell us what the IBA's involvement is and what they're doing to sort of promote this cause and get this loop closed.
So in terms of the IBA, obviously, as I said, I reached out to them to, I guess, create or get the opportunity to create a bigger network around it. So as I mentioned, James has been amazing from the get-go. And as someone who has a focus on sustainability, he asked me questions that at the time I still couldn't answer, which was great because it challenged me in a way to sort of go out and find these. And he provided me the resource, the ability to do so. IBA currently have partnered up with Dan Murphy's. So Dan Murphy's have rolled out a similar program through sort of key stores around the East Coast. I know it's Victoria, New South Wales. I believe it's Queensland as well. And it's a bit of a pilot program for them with this, and that's in partnership with IBA. So through my conversation with the IBA with this, I was able to sort of go back and converse with the Endeavour group and I guess sort of work in this weird us and them and Paktech and Vizzy. There's a lot of players in it at one stage to try and figure that out. So IBA is currently supporting the Endeavour program. Obviously, that network of Dan Murphy's and BWS stores is just so huge that it's going to take the biggest chunk out of the market initially. And whilst that program's up and running, we're backgrounding it to see how that works, so we can make sure we can roll it out to an independent level across other breweries. Because I guess once we move from just one singular business handling it, and then the possibility of there's hundreds of breweries in the country, say we get 25% uptick and we've got over 100 breweries handling it, it does become a bit of a logistical nightmare if it's not set correctly. So that's the process we're in now, is actually making sure it's all lined up so we can plug it in. Obviously things will happen, but we'll have the ability to understand the program and find the holes and the flaws and fix them beforehand, or a lot faster on the fly, I guess, once it does roll out.
Sounds like if you're working with Dan's and BWS and sustainability, that sounds like a Dermy Mortar thing.
It is, yeah.
He's very, very good at the sustainability thing. He's just a massive advocate of it. If you see the stuff that he's doing he posts about on LinkedIn and that sort of thing, it's amazing. He's very passionate about it, and
he's been the main person that I've spoken with in that group about this. So it's quite funny. We when we were launching the program, I actually sort of reached out to them, and he got back to me. He said, we're actually launching this program, but in a few months. Obviously, it's a little bit easier for a small brewery to just sort of say, let's buy some boxes and put them in independent retail versus Endeavour Group sort of doing anything. And that's been really great because he and I have been able to have those conversations back and forth over months to sort of say, hey, this is what's going on. What do you think of this? This is the system. This is the problems we're having. This is the problems we're having, and sort of work on it together. So I feel, they've got a system in place now, which is a good trial run. I think the whole purpose for me and I guess the independent side of it is that making sure that closed loop, that's been the real purpose for the past 3 months, is making sure at the end of it, we can sort of turn around and say, we've done everything we can to close this. We're not sort of taking it from one place, moving it to another and saying, hey, look how good we were. Very conscious, especially after speaking to James from Stone and Wood about greenwashing. So we want to make sure that we're doing this the appropriate way and we're actually finishing it. It's it's been a long road. It's pretty crazy. Yeah,
because the last thing you want as well is for things like Paktechs to all of a sudden wind up in some state's container deposit scheme, because that would be a terrible outcome.
I think anything I think every state's container deposit scheme is pretty terrible at this stage.
Yeah.
Let's talk about getting a national rollout of that happening first, rather than these state by state decisions.
Indeed, that's fascinating. So basically, to summarize, you're trying to close that loop. It's almost closed. Busy is sort of bringing up the slack there. Should be able to have some capability in the future to be able to close the loop and recycle Paktechs for real.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you're collecting them mostly at your house. Don't smoke at Evan's house.
Yeah, no, I don't go near the van.
and then hopefully we'll have some sort of sense of sustainability with regards to Paktechs. Because the thing is with Paktechs, man, they're bloody good at what they do.
Yeah.
Right?
And
really good at what they do.
And from a production standpoint, it is the most practical. I mean, sure, we'd like to look at alternative options, but these are small. We're a small business. Everyone's a small business, really, in this industry. The automation it takes for certain packaging lines to bring in maybe something else to use, it's just not feasible. And then I know you guys discussed some of the other options out there, and I believe it was Grifter that's got their own one. That's right.
The cardboard one. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see that. I mean, I in the past had used the E6 PRs, which are those supposedly sustainable compostable ones.
Oh yeah, that was the shit.
Or that, yeah, I mean, like as you said, you pull one can out, it snaps, so it's a one use as well. And to go back to barcodes, I mean, you couldn't put a barcode on. So all of a sudden, you just had this
no
trade
branding,
issue.
and no branding's fine. But I think if someone can, like what Grifter's doing, I mean, I haven't used one, and I'm keen to use one, and I mean, not keen enough to have done it yet, but I am keen because I probably should have done it already. But I like the fact that you can brand them because that's a nice little bonus, and if they work effectively, that's good. But I think it's asking too much for companies to change their kind of canning line and introduce something that doesn't work very well. Like that's too much. But if we can either solve it through reusing Paktechs or we can solve it through another method, then I think that's how innovation happens.
Yeah. And I think that's what's ended up happening here is that we're all using them because we know it's the best out there. Yeah. It's the most logical. We can trust it. I mean, I know from our brewery, every time we've used any different sort of packaging material, it has to go through the swing test. Put a six pack in and swing it up and down a couple of times, see if one falls out. Because you have to be smart like that. You have to understand it. And Paktechs definitely passed that test, and from a quality perspective, they're great. I think this is us.
Sorry, I just had a random thought the other day that like the Paktech, at least for me, other people's use case might be different. From my point of view, like I'll get a 4-pack from work and I'll take it home and I'll put it in the fridge and then I'll just put the Paktech under the sink and then you just start kind of compiling Paktechs. Like really all it is doing is getting the beer from the brewery or the bottle shop or whatever to your fridge. It's really just transporting the beer. And there's other ways of buying products. Like if you buy a 18-pack of Coke or whatever, it just comes in a big box, with no Paktechs in there. It just comes in a big box and they've figured out a way to get the can out of the box without requiring Paktechs. So I wonder if there might be a potential future where some breweries look at that kind of solution.
Well,
that's
we've actually got 10-pack product, which are those like that Coke or Jack Daniel's style sort of like premix.
Westrock's different though, because you're still like if you're like that's what Stone and Water using, but with the fully wrapped 4-packs, right?
Yeah.
So you have to get the packaging from Westrock, you have to get the machine from Westrock, and it's still just a 4-pack.
Yeah.
So it's a solution, but it comes with problems. But like, is it not just a problem that it's part of the problem that we're all buying singles and 4-packs instead of a box that's a more reasonable size that is consumed quick enough to not need the extra transportation of the plastic.
Yeah, exactly. But a cardboard box is much more recyclable.
Exactly.
Because we have the infrastructure for it and that sort of thing. Hey, who made that the carton outer machine at yours? What was that company?
At Black Ops, or who are you talking about?
Yeah, yours.
Who made what? Oh, the case packer?
The Fiber King. The Fiber King.
Yeah.
Maybe they could do something. I don't know. Make a machine that makes 4-pack boxes or 6-pack boxes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's what I said on the other ones. We're making a machine to do the Paktechs because we couldn't get one in the size that suits our new canning line. We had to get either a gigantic one or a slower one or split the line. And so we're actually building our own, which it was a pretty tricky thing to sign off on because you kind of know that it's a risky thing to build your own equipment to start with. But then secondly, you're investing in a technology that you're kind of hoping is going to be around in a few years, going against a trend of single-use plastic.
Yeah, exactly.
But building something like that Westrock machine, I think that's a whole new level of complication. And plus they're not that good because they're not going to pass a swing test, are they? Take one beer out of it and it's gone.
Yeah. There is a very easy solution to the problem, which unfortunately I just don't think is capable. It's only really the issue is with the black Paktechs. So
yeah, I feel extra guilty now that you told me that.
I didn't know this, and it's we all use black because let's face it, for packaging, it's the sleekest and it probably looks the best. And
I have a company called Black Hops. I mean, it's going to be difficult to use a white Paktech.
Yeah. So what you'll notice is if next time you're at a bottle shop, if they've got the grey, like weird sort of grey silver Paktechs on beers, you see them occasionally. Sort of grab them, and you'll notice they're never the two same color, really, because they're actually a blend of all the colors put together. Wow. So anything but black can go in, and they blend them. They shave them down, and then they blend them back, and then they repress them into grey ones. So they're blues, oranges, whites, reds all sort of go together, and they make that grey sort of silver color. So that's not the issue. Those ones are actually, in theory, recyclable. I don't have any definitive proof that there's still the machinery or available currently in the system in Australia anyway to do that. But that's what they basically said is the big issue is the carbon black just makes it impossible for the machines to read them. So, if they took carbon black off the market, maybe that makes a lot of sense. And we can start using those ones. But then the problem becomes everybody wants black and then someone else will just make a black one. So I guess,
Well, but no one else has got a Paktech competitor, really, do they? Like a legitimate one.
No.
So they've got must have some patents around that or something. But I think if they can recycle the grey ones and just say we're no longer doing black, I mean, everyone would just not use black. That's fine.
Change the company name to Grey Hops, mate.
All right, we'll do Grey Hops. There you go. Well, the Paktech's not a big part of the brand. Like if you look at the top of a beer, it's generally silver either way, so it's fine.
Do you know what I feel like? I feel like drinking that Lucky 13.
Oh, it'd be cold by now, mate.
Well, I'll get a glass even for you.
I would like to see.
So you guys talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to go and get this Lucky 13 because I think we kind of owe it to Maz to at least try this beer on the show, or at least one of us, because you haven't got yours yet. But
I don't have mine.
Did he send these to you?
Yeah, he sent them. Yeah, he sent them next day. So I haven't tried it yet. So I'm going to get it. I'm going to try it live. So talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back.
Well, I think it's a good idea as long as he likes the beer or he's a really good actor.
Yeah, well, you're doing a visual podcast, so yes. You're gonna have some problems here.
We're gonna have some massive problems if he doesn't like the beer. But I mean, it sounds like a great beer.
I mean, knowing Maz though, he won't voice his opinion if he feels he's been disrespected. So
right. No, not at all. I thought that was really nice. He sent me the same thing. He sent me an email saying. He sent me a message saying, "What's your email address?" And I said, "It's the same fucking email address I sent you an invite to the show on 30 minutes ago. It hasn't changed in the last 30 minutes, but this is why." So I thought that was really nice.
It's actually nice and cold now. There you go, Lucky 13. Nice.
You got to compare it to Rattenhood though.
I've had a few of those. I spent a bit of time with Benny Taylor, who's the local Hop Nation rep, and we had our grand final party, and he brought a keg of Rattenhood.
Oh,
nice!
And I got totally Rattenhood. Oh my god!
How is Ben going? I haven't seen him for a long time.
Oh, he's crushing it, mate. He's having a ball. Sorry, pardon my dirty glass there, but that looks
Tendo. Come on, because this is the first time he's used a glass in the last 6 months.
That wouldn't pass the test on the old beer thread.
No. All right. Well, let's no. Fuck no. Let's have a look.
It's quite dark, isn't it? It might be just your basement.
That's my room.
Yeah.
It's pretty fucking good. Pretty good.
Is it good, or is he just a good actor? It's pretty convincing.
I mean, the fear of Maz is real in most people. So
yes, I don't fear Maz. Maz will just pick up the phone after he listens to the podcast and just tell me to fuck off. That's just
he will probably do that either way.
Yeah.
Okay. So my thoughts on this beer are very, very hoppy, like just like Rattenhood. I don't want to make a comparison to Rattenhood because this beer sort of stands in its own right and that sort of thing. Beautifully hoppy, real firm bitterness to it. Nice, very subtle malt sweetness, and just a little bit of yeast ester to it. It's really well balanced, really well rounded. I hope that this becomes a thing.
Oh, I was just thinking the same thing.
I hope Pilsner just becomes a thing in Australia, and all of a sudden Australia just goes light bulb, bing, and we all start drinking Pilsner.
I was so excited by how detailed this review was, Hendo, and I got excited about the beer.
I know. Well, that's just what I do. That's like I'm practically at work at the moment, So it's like...
have you seen Dave Portnoy, the guy who runs Barstool Sports?
Yeah.
Have you seen his pizza reviews? So he does the pizza reviews, and he just goes to a random pizza restaurant. It's like one bite, everyone knows the rules. Then he has 50 bites of this pizza and then just does a review of it, like public, and people yell at him and shit. It's great. But every time me and my kids eat dinner, we'll do a review, and we'll do like one bite, everyone knows the rules, and then we'll do like our own little review. So we could, on this show, we could do one sip, everyone knows the rules, steal his thing, and we could just review the beer like you just did. Because normally I'm just like, I'm having this beer, but like you just did, you actually did a proper review.
Yeah. And it was a 30-second review as well. It didn't take that long. I didn't want to bang on about it and just tell you if I like it or not. I like this beer. I think it's pretty good. I think it was me mate Alex who put this one together. I think Alex and yeah. It's good.
I think the crispy boys are coming into fashion now. It's a lot more Pilsner and lager love happening, I feel, than ever before. So
is it crispy boys? Is that a thing? Is that's
yeah? It's a crispy boy. You got the hazy boys. You got the crispy boys.
Crispy
boys.
Because every lager is crisp. Is that why?
I think in theory, yeah.
Right. Yes.
I love making them. You know, they're just such a challenge to make, and I'd love to make a beer that good. You know, it's there's just nowhere to bloody hide in it. You know, and that's the challenge with it. You know, it's not that it's easy to make a good, you know, IPA or anything like that, but just there's that extra little degree of difficulty if you want to make a good lager, you know.
That was the beer we talked about at the start of this episode, wasn't it? The froth lager, wasn't it?
Froth Rookies, yeah. We messed up the alcohol, yeah.
There you go. Point proven.
Learning outcome.
Very good.
I'm asking for more balsamic porter, Hendo. I think that's
Acid Freaks.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a throwback, but I want more of that.
I know. It was so good. Yeah. I think I've got a couple of bottles in my cupboard here. But yeah, it was so good.
Has anyone else dared to try a balsamic vinegar beer in this country yet? You might stand unopposed.
Not on purpose.
Your mates did a salt and vinegar chip beer called
That's
Sammy.
right.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they're the only sort of. There might be a few imports. I'm pretty sure like someone like McKellar or a Mipolo or something like that would have done something with vinegar, you know. But
2's probably enough, though, isn't it? To be honest.
2 is truly enough.
I'm looking forward to the ARBAs having a balsamic vinegar just category at one point. I think that's
Bring it. I'll pick up the phone to my brother and we'll crush it. The balsamic Baltic Porter class.
All right. Well, let's move on. We've got we've been going for a while. These things are getting out of control, Hendo. We'll do a 30-minute podcast, and all of a sudden, every episode's 2 hours.
Yeah,
but that's fine.
And I got to tell you, this folder where I found that photo of Ev, Kev, and Bev.
What else you got?
This has got some phenomenal photos in there. I'm looking at a photo of Nat Reeves from Kaiju just pouring cans of VB. You know what the fuck's going on there?
You still got sharing privileges here, Hendo. So.
Do I?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, where did the photo go? Anyway, continue. What was the next topic?
All right. Yes. Well, we've got other topics, but we could just do fan questions if you want, or we could just dig into another topic. Okay. You want to stick around, Ev, for some fan questions?
It's up to you, fellas. I'm not doing anything, so
yeah, let's do it.
That's it.
So now, question number 1 comes from Darren Hill, who I introduced on our last episode. He's the man of many questions. The question is, what keeps you up at night, your biggest stresses? And other than your house burning down, which we've already discussed, Ev, do you want to go first?
I'm hoping this is from a craft beer perspective and not just a really...
just generally...
Just want a general understanding of my psyche. God.
No, well, you work in the industry. Like, what are the things that you think about at night? You worry about? I think it's a cool question.
Yeah, I think it's much deeper than I was expecting from fan questions. There you go.
They're a hard question.
To be honest with you,
what we do.
It's the hard hitting questions. I guess for me, I'm working for a brewery now, and one that I care about in great stead. Like I'm a huge advocate for the brand, and really don't see myself going anywhere but Bright. So, I've invested a lot of myself in this brand, and we've worked really hard over the past couple of years in terms of sort of reinventing ourselves for a new market and changing who we are. So, what keeps me up at night is, I guess I want to keep the momentum train going for us. It's about staying on that trend. It's about not faulting on our promises as well. I feel like, we've made some really great steps as a business. But, you're always worried that something's going to fall apart. We're coming through a pandemic now, and it's kind of happened. So I do feel a lot more confident in, I guess, the business model than ever before. I feel confident in our brand. But, I think it's just the general thing of something going wrong in the brewery that will change the brand's trajectory. Which I don't know what that would be, but we had a brand recall this year, which I guess is one of the biggest fears. And I think what we did is we steered into the skid. That was our whole plan. So we had a pineapple milkshake nitro ale that basically after 2 days became a grenade, which was real fun to sort of peg from a distance and sort of see what would happen, because they just exploded at a pretty alarming rate.
I didn't think to do that with ours.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, we sort of came out of it, I think, even better than we went in, because, outside of a few minor issues that we had, a can exploding on a retailer's computer and destroying their hard drive, sort of being
what
that, and
get into cloud computing, guys. What is wrong with you? You don't need a hard drive.
And then we did have a bloke who left his in the backseat of his car for 3 days in Brisbane, and then complained it exploded, and we sort of said, "Oh, that one might be on you, mate."
Do better.
Yeah, but I think that's probably my fear. We've already sort of seen our fears, and we've sort of come through them past 18 months, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
What sort of size is Bright?
So our literage capacity, so we've upgraded, so it's a bit of a weird one. We initially were pretty small. We basically just a brew pub sort of servicing the venue. A couple of years ago, we built a production brewery, still in the town of Bright, but sort of away from the venue, so we could move to wholesale. So I think our current capacity limitation is about 1.5 million a year. And we've got room to grow.
How much are you actually producing or selling?
So I think last year we ticked over about 375. So, and that's only
it's pretty small, like from a quality point of view, you're still pretty hard to get everything perfect at that size, isn't it? You don't have millions of dollars to be spending on labs and.
No, and like this is the thing, as we found with the pineapple, it was a small mistake. Well, not really a mistake. It was just it was a process that we used on other beers that hadn't had that outcome. And then I think pineapple in itself was just a really risky choice. We've now found as a fruit is not the way to go. But yeah, it's that trial and error. It's craft beer in terms of, we just sort of, let's hope it works. We've gotten a lot better from it, and our systems are in place, but yeah, we're still relatively small in the scheme of things. Yeah.
And you said you come out of that better. How so? And why do you think that you came out of it better?
I think because we were honest about it. We knew pretty much, it sort of happened in a weird time frame where, the cans got to sort of me on a Thursday, because I'm based about 4 hours from the brewery, so I'm in Melbourne. And about 2 or 3 days later, I was doing a beer festival, and I had cans on me, and I sort of went, okay, this isn't right.
Firm.
Yeah, these getting a bit tight. So we straight away sort of all got on the phone with each other, and everyone checked and said, okay, like we've got to recall these. This was on I think a Sunday morning maybe. So we sort of knew we can't really start that process till Monday. But from about 6 a.m. on Monday, the call was made. We went straight to market. We contacted all the health. We did all the things you're supposed to do. But what we found was just going to retailers and basically saying, listen, this is what's happened. The amount of retailers that came back to us and said, thank you for admitting it.
Yeah.
So many times they don't admit it. And we have this sweep under the rug sort of thing, and we'll just take it away. And
you can't do that.
It could have been.
Oh, people have done that.
Yeah, and it could have been a really.
I know people have done it, but you can't. You just can't do that.
No,
that happened to this. That very same thing happened to Dan.
Yes,
and then Dan rings me up on a lazy Wednesday afternoon or something like that, and he sort of says, "Fuck, we've got cans that are exploding," and I'd done some work with Dan, Eddie, and Govs to do their recall plan, and I said, "What are you calling me for, mate? You got a recall plan? Yeah. We've done a mock recall, mate. Just fucking go follow it, dude." And they did, and I said, "Look, I'm here to help you. but you've got the plan, go follow the plan. And I think the outcome was good for you as well, Dan, because you were honest and transparent, or Black Ops was honest and transparent. And I think consumers see value in that, in that, you own your shit, and you sort of say, look, we messed up, we make good on it. And sounds like that's what Bright's done as well, Ev, is that, you've just got to own it. I cannot understand for the life of me why a brewery would want to sweep something like that under the rug.
Around the time that our one popped up, there was definitely a few other cans in that pack that the same thing was happening to, and it felt like it was kept pretty quiet. So I don't know if there's kind of a point where people are like, it's only a couple of people, let's just ignore it, or it'll go away. But it is just scary, especially for like a small business at that size. Like, it's just scary because any one of these things could just bury the business.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Well, it's like, but at the end of the day, I can't understand how someone can, if you talk about things that keep people up at night, how you can sleep well at night, knowing that you've got a beer that's literally a threat to public health and safety, and try to sweep it under the rug and make it go away. That's just
And I think that the scariest thing,
it's highest level.
Agreed.
The scariest thing is, I guess, from our perspective, is when it happened. You don't want that that notion, because Dan, I'm not too sure sort of what it was like for you with the recall notices, but they're pretty generic in terms of the ones that the government hands to you and says, this is what it's got to look like. Put the image there. It almost looks like, don't drink this, it's poison. Which was our biggest fear, is we have to display these for 2 weeks at every place that had them. So any consumer that purchased them, and then you're sort of like, okay, does this now represent our brand sort of being perceived as, they're trying to sell me something that's poisonous? Thankfully, it wasn't. We're probably really lucky it wasn't our pale ale or our lager that had this issue, but it was a bloody pineapple milkshake ale. Because the second it went out and the Queensland sort of health department posted it on their Facebook for whatever reason, there's 3,000 shares, Channel 7 are picking it up. Everyone's like, re-fermented beer, this is awesome. They just want to take, and we sort of got to ride that wave a little bit more. I think if it was a everyday beer, we might have had a worse connotation. So we kind of lucked out in that department to some degree.
Yeah, our screenshot, even a year or two down the track, was still being shown in these kind of Queensland health sponsored ads for recalls. And I was just like, this was a tiny little batch of beer in the beer cartel calendar from 2 years ago. Like, just stop. But no, I think it's people don't trust companies. That's the bottom line. And if a company does the right thing, it's always well received. So, if I think the only thing to do in that situation is do the right thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What keeps you up at night, Hendo? Counting your Aber trophies in the back there. We're looking forward to the next one.
It doesn't take long. Hey, there's this one. That's it. That's all I've got. Oh, there's others, but I don't have it. They're not in my possession because they belong to other breweries and that sort of thing.
Well, you were heavily involved in a couple of ours, so you can.
Yeah, look, but they're yours. I'm just grateful to be, part of the effort. And so what keeps me up at night? Well, at the moment, it is renovations. I've recently bought an apartment, and I've stupidly decided that I'm going to renovate it myself. And if you had told me at the start of the year, hey, Hendo, you're going to be renovating the apartment this year, I would have laughed at you at the start of the year. But anyway, here I am. Got this apartment and renovating it, and I'm learning heaps. YouTube, it's amazing. And the bloody electrician ran a new circuit because I always wanted a double oven in my kitchen, so I'm redoing the kitchen. It's amazing. And so he had to run this circuit, but he had to punch holes in this big square holes in the ceiling. And I've actually patched these up, and you can't tell where the holes are. So it's phenomenal.
Nice. Did you learn anything about asbestos before you patched those holes up?
There's no asbestos. I had the building inspection done, so I know that there's no asbestos and that sort of thing. But the thing that keeps me up at night is that the clock is ticking until the new kitchen goes in, and I've got a lot of work to do before that happens. So my weekends at the moment are not really weekends. I'm just in plastering and painting and fucking sanding. Oh, so much fucking sanding.
Oh, nice.
Amazing.
Didn't
But
know that.
the outcome's going to be
Sounds
pretty
fun.
good. I'm not in a hurry. I'm enjoying the experience. It's pretty good. If my old man was around, he would have loved this. Actually, no, he would have done a really good job at gutting the place, and as we did, but he would have done a shit job at putting it back together. But he would have had fun. So
That's the problem I have with renos too. You're like a reasonably patient person. I think that helps with renovating. You can't be patient like me.
There's no, I mean, the time constraint that I have is, where I'm living here is the least, being up in 6 months' time and that sort of thing. So I don't really care, and so as long as it's done by then, that's fine. But I'm shit at picking. We want to know what keeps you up at night. Picking colours, man. I've got no idea of that shit. I had to get this young lady around to do all the kitchen, the colours and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, yeah, stainless steel. I work with stainless steel. I don't want it everywhere because I don't want it to feel like work. And so that's actually worked out really good. But then, the other thing that's keeping me up at night, like I'm going to paint the walls and they're going to be white. Do you know how many fucking colours of white there are?
I do know.
Yeah.
You've got the cream, the bone, the white, the off-white, the ivory, and the beige.
It's unbelievable. I got these 2 little bloody sample pots from Bunnings, right? And I went, I'll just chuck them on the wall. And I looked at one was this vivid white and one was this natural white. And I looked at them both. I went, I fucking hate both of them, And so I'm like, now I went and bought some more sample pots. I'm trying to find the fucking white to go on the walls. This is stupid.
I don't know about you, Ev, but this is why the podcast is called The Boss and the Brewer, because I'm obviously the brewer. I've got the flannel here.
Yeah,
I'm not wearing it because it's hot in here.
That's his office flannel, by the way.
Not brewing at the moment. That is the office flannel, but you get the point.
Don't be fooled in for a second to think.
No, you get the point.
He told me he was in the podcast of the day. He was dry hopping last week. I mean,
100%. Dry hopping on brew day.
He dry hops
did you do
all
the standard brewery owner thing where you let the brew happen and then you just get up with the mash paddle and take the photo for Instagram, drop it, and then walk away?
I don't do the mash paddle. I do the salt bay with the hops.
Very nice.
Good to go. But the point is, it's called The Boss and the Brewer because this boss man here, he doesn't have any problems. He's sitting in here with his trophies. His biggest problem is choosing a color for his new building. I mean,
I'm choosing white, mate. The white. Fucking hard.
Wow. Must be good to be you, Hendo. Must feel nice.
He's got that trophy money.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, making it rain. Yeah. Do we have any other questions?
I should answer this question as well.
Yeah. What keeps you up at night?
I would say to this question, for so long I was so cruisy about everything with Black Ops. Like it always used to be Eddie. Like when we first started out, Eddie hadn't had a business before, so he would freak out at everything. Ops is just fucking chilled, so he's cool. And I'd had businesses before, so I kind of understood that, like shit goes wrong. Sometimes there's financial pressure. You get through it. It's all fine. But there was definitely times in the last probably after we built BH2 and when COVID hit were the 2 times where I was just like, no, we're actually fucked. And it was always just financially fucked. It was just like, okay, we've got no money. We're fucked. And at that point, it's like, you're not just losing the business. 75 people are losing their jobs. You're losing your house. You're losing everything you've ever worked for. So that kept me up for a while. But things. So it's always. But
you powered through it though.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you have some sleepless nights when all this was going down?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the main thing that you were, concerned about? Like,
just finance. It was just like we're going to run out of money, and there's no possibility of getting through it. And that was always like when we built BH2, we basically said, okay, we're doing about the 400,000 liters a year or something. We built a brewery that was capable of doing 3 million. We upgraded basically 10x. We didn't have any money for it. We didn't have any ability really to raise more money other than from current investors, but raising money from investors wasn't really a thing that I'd ever done before. Like we'd done it at the start, but it felt so experimental. It's not really something I know how to do. crowdfunding was illegal, so we couldn't do that. We did crowdfunding eventually. We got the money like the month the brewery opened, and then we got a loan from the bank the day the brewery opened for almost $1 million. And at that point, you know, we'd signed a lease worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we'd put so much into it. Like it was all going to blow up if this didn't happen. And so like those, and then that was the worst of it was yet to come, because we opened in February. We went from a brewery doing 400,000 litres at a very small site to a brewery doing 400,000 litres at a gigantic site in February, the worst month of the year with winter ahead of us, going from more or less break even profitability to losing almost $200,000 in our first month at BH2 with no backup. That was the worst. COVID was bad, but that was the worst. That was like, actually, like even this is too much for me. Someone who likes to take risks. Yeah.
You feel like after the last 18 months, it has put that perspective in. I guess from what I've seen and what we've been through, because, you know, a lot of our revenue is generated from our venue. And wholesale is a very new thing for the brewery. So, you know, at the height of our sort of like our peak period, we have 75 employees on the books. And then, you know, we went through the bushfires, came out, sort of lost our key. So 2 of our 3 sort of major weekends for the year. We lost those to the bushfires, then rolled in the pandemic. And basically, you know, it's a tourist town. It has 2,000 people in it at the best of times as residents. It disappeared. The venue closes. You know, the fear hit us as well. And we've been lucky enough that, you know, our business has grown in the wholesale side of things really well. And we timed things luckily. You know, a lot of times I think we hustled hard, but everything kind of fell fortunate for us in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But sort of being through that, and I guess now hopefully coming out the tail end of it, from a Victorian perspective, sort of where we are now, I think our fear has changed in, you know, we've been through what seemingly feels like the worst of scenarios. Do you guys feel like you sort of come past, wow, this is like, if there's ever a breaking point, this should be it, and we got through that? Now, I
feel like it's a lot like what you say. It's a lot of luck and timing. Like our business has grown exponentially since day one, but it didn't like, we finally got through that period I was talking about of just crazy losses. And then by the summer, we started coming good and we're making money again. And we were like, man, maybe 2020 is going to be our first year where we're actually profitable. And, you know, February was a disaster because it always is. And then March, I was looking at the numbers. I'm like, this is it. This is the actual turning point for the company. And then my birthday was 20th of March, my 40th. Fuck. God damn it. I just said it. I don't qualify for the entrepreneur awards anymore. Anyway, it's not relevant. It's fine. It's not a big deal. It's fine. It's not an important part of the story. Let's move on. But, and that was the month COVID hit. And it was like, oh shit. Like that is just the worst luck ever. But in hindsight, it was, everything that's happened since then has been really, really good for us. But I still have the fear that like when Stone and Wood sold, I was like, because Stone and Wood were always kind of like the shining light. Every time I would see them at events, or like I would see Jamie or email him, or like I had him on the Black Ops podcast once. And it was kind of like, there's this company out there that did all of this, you know, with not a lot of outside funding really, and stayed independent, stayed profitable, stayed as the leaders of the industry. So you sort of thought, okay, all the pain we're going through now financially to try and make this work, there's light at the end of the tunnel. So when they sold, you know, you kind of start thinking like, you know, like 400,000 litres to 1 million was a big one, but 1 million to 3 is goddamn painful. And beyond that, I mean, when does it actually, like Stone and Wood were doing what, 15 million litres, and they're still in a position where they're selling. You kind of think like, when does it actually become easy? Like, does it ever become easy?
Yeah. I was listening to the chat with Maz last week, and I liked his perspective on his opinion of people selling, and it like, and you guys are in this, is that growth period. I remember hearing when Feral sold, the kind of explanation that it was, you know, it was a family business that was growing exponentially. But what people don't see is, you know, when they get all up in arms about, oh, they sold and they were independent and this, that, and other, is the giant amount of stress and debt and everything you're carrying, like you're saying, you're carrying 75 staff, whatever it might be. It's a huge burden to take on every day. And if something goes wrong, and, when Feral sold, and I might be wrong in this, but I remember sort of hearing that it was basically like, well, I've secured my family's financial security. I've taken this giant burden that doesn't allow, me to sleep at night because I'm worrying about these people. And I've given it to a business that I can trust will, although changes will be made and it's inevitable in that scenario, are probably going to be a lot safer for my workers. Like, I guess from a financial perspective, that they're, that's, if something happens, this business can absorb it now. Right. And it's hard to argue with sort of see that. Yeah. And I think that's what gets lost on consumers a lot, is when they sort of kick up about independence. Like, we're all in independent beer, we're all craft breweries, but I do think there's an emotional weight and a mental weight that comes from being in a position like yourself, or the guys Stone and Water, Feral, or Pirate Life, whatever it might be, about sort of saying, well, I'm carrying a lot of debt, I'm carrying a lot of people on my back. Is this living? And what is my final outcome here? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. I think also, though, it is like, entrepreneurship. If you own a business like this, it's you shouldn't expect it to be easy. It's always going to be very, very difficult, and there's I think there's levels of pain that you're prepared to go through. And at that point, when we were going through that was like getting pretty close to the top of the level of pain and risk I'm prepared to go to. But everyone's different. Like, some people are just roll the dice, whatever. But the average person is not. Like, the levels of, risk, just the risk, like the shit that can go wrong if you spend too much time thinking about that. There's just so many things that can go wrong as a director of a decent size manufacturing business that, has every safety concern and financial concern and everything else. It's a lot. Well, I told you Darren Hill knows how to ask a good question.
Isn't he great?
Right. Number 2, Zhu is my accountant, well, one of them, because we have a few. His question is, do you have a prediction, which is kind of on topic, do you have a prediction for the next CUB/Lion buyout? And I'll start this by saying that when Lion hadn't bought anything in a while before the Stone and Wood one, my prediction was that Lion were going to buy Bent Spoke. And I was wrong. At least, as far as I know, that I was wrong. And Stone and Wood was a surprise to me. Balter wasn't that much of a surprise. Stone and Wood was a surprise. But over to you first, Hendo. What do you reckon? Next one.
Well, as I said in the last episode, I think they buy market share. And as soon as you see that tall poppy, rise up, one of the big boys is just going to go, thank you, and just snap it up and that sort of thing. Ben Spoke, I don't know. Richard and his team, they're pretty, I don't want to speculate about, what their thoughts are. As we've said before, everyone's got an exit strategy, but there are some growing multi-million litre a year breweries that I would say that the majors would have an eye on. I just can't, no disrespect it. I just can't see CUB buying another Southeast Queensland brewery. They've got like three or four or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think CUB are going to buy any craft breweries anytime soon.
Yeah, and then Lion. Buying something in Southeast Queensland. It's just if it's a regional thing, it just doesn't really make much sense to me.
Not just Queensland though. What the whole of Australia? What?
Well, exactly. I think there's probably a couple of breweries in New South Wales, a couple of breweries in Victoria that I think would be, candidates for a sale. But I don't think that. My prediction is I don't think that that's going to happen for quite a while, because it was a big.
Who were the breweries? You're sitting on the fence, mate.
Oh, look, like it'd be, if I was going to call out some breweries, the ones that are sort of really that are growing, and this is just, and I'm only say this to say that these are the breweries that are growing, not that the people behind them want to sell, and not that Lion or CUB want to buy, but but based on the premise that if there's a brewery that is growing and it has a certain level of market share, that one of the majors would go, yes, we'll have that, thank you very much. They'd be breweries like Ben Spoke would be up there, but I just don't see Richard just selling. Moondog, they're pretty big. They're doing a few million a year now. Who else would be a decent candidate?
What about Young Henry's?
Oh, look, Young Henry's, they're quite they're doing quite a bit of volume and that sort of thing.
Strong brand too.
Very strong brand. Great. They've got great branding message and that sort of thing. They know their target audience and speak to them very well, like Stone and Wood did, like Balter did.
Yeah.
That's about it.
What about Brick Lane?
No, I don't see that. No, not really. We should get Paul on the show, Paul Balker on the show. He'd be really rad, actually. But
let's do it. I don't know much about Brick Lane. I don't know from there.
Well, they're doing probably something like 10 or something million liters a year now, but it's all.
Oh, I don't know.
Mostly.
Doing that. I don't know if they from that interview that I listened to. That didn't sound like they were kind of talking about the capacity of the brew house and.
No, they're totally up around that.
Right, it is a very big brewery, isn't it? Gudsy went down
massive.
there when we're looking at packaging.
I spent a lot of time there working with a few clients and stuff like that as well. It's a big brewery, and they're constantly hiring at the moment. But
they've got enough money to get through a few more years.
Well, they've got a really interesting, set of owners behind them. You've got Eddie McGuire, you've got a few footy players and all that sort of
Dan
stuff.
Carter and the like, don't you?
That's right, yeah. And so I don't think, they look at it as an investment, obviously. No, I don't really see that selling. I don't. I think it's, to be fair, I think it's pretty slim pickings out there at the moment. If I was a major looking to buy a brand, you think about what was the length of time between Stone and Wood selling and the brewery before it, which would have been
Balter was not that far before. You mean for Lion or just generally?
Lion or CUB?
Well, Balter
it wouldn't have been long, 2 years.
Balter, but Green Beacon were quite a bit before, I think.
So
your prediction is no. Well, what's your prediction? No sales for the next 2 years?
2 years, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Ev?
Yeah. I don't think it's a question of who's, as I said, there's always an exit strategy. Who's to sell? It's who makes the most sense. So I think looking at the two major players now, once you sort of, Asahi, CUB are now one. So you've created a two different monsters. I think Lion are really happy. I think the Lion purchase of Stone and Wood is smart, not just from buying such an iconic, strong brand, but they bought a portfolio of brands as well.
Yeah.
If you had asked me 12 months ago, value for money for Lion, and I felt like Lion would be the most primed. I would actually say Two Birds was perfect in terms of brand message, ability to get to market, probably sort of like capital ownership as well of what the cost investment would be sort of in return. I always felt like Stone and Wood is a really strong, Little Creatures-esque story they could have worked on. And I think what they've done is they've been able to get really lucky with the Fermentum Group. Maybe it's just because I'm Victorian based, so I'm thinking about who I see from a volume perspective and a sensible one. And this is in no way, shape, or form saying they want to, as Hendo said. I'll put that out there. But if I'm a CUB executive and I'm looking at and I'm saying, okay, Lion have purchased something, it's probably our turn. We're sort of going 1 for 1 to some degree. To me, Moondog makes the most sense in terms of distribution, strength of brand. I think Fizz is a massive part of that too. I think, when you're, again, I think the Fermentum sale will probably change the perspective there because you've gone from buying breweries to buying, collections of breweries. So CUB probably go, okay, well, instead of just buying one, if we can buy a few, and Moondog in a sense has both. It has Fizzer, which is, arguably the strongest brand in seltzer for Victoria. I don't know its sort of national strength, but, they've been pretty innovative in terms of realizing some of the pitfalls, I guess, of the keg system by coming up with this post-mix system, and they're obviously working. And I think it's very Moondog-esque.
They fucking know how to execute those guys, don't they?
Yeah, and it's a really well-oiled machine. And you know, the thing I guess that the reason these guys get bought up so often is I feel like the CB executives that have no sort of real ability to go, how do we create a real authentic craft beer brand? So they go out searching for one, and they obviously go for the strongest ones because you want to make the most sense. You get Moondog, you get 2 venues, you get a big venue in Moondog World. You've got a strong brand with strong iconography, the really like long-term, it's their 10-year anniversary today. So they've had 10 years of market to build it.
Yeah.
And they've got the Fizzer brand, which is, you know, it's an emerging market. It's something that I'm sure both CB and Lion are trying to figure out how they can get their biggest piece of. Lion, I'm pretty sure, has White Claw on the portfolio, which would be, you know, the largest in the world.
Yeah.
So for me, I would, if I'm a CB executive and I'm saying I want one, that's what I'm looking at. There's definitely other ones on the board, but I think from a Victorian perspective, I feel like, you know, value for money, bang for buck. You know, it's not going to be cheap to buy, but you get so much out of that. You don't just get a brand with distribution. You sort of get a whole package, which I think it will change now that the Fermentum sales happened as well. I think they'll look at it a little bit differently than they used to.
Yeah, nice. I love the Moondog brand.
Me too,
man. It's like everything about Moondog. Every single interaction that I've had with the Moondog brand, I have pissed myself laughing. Right? And you know, it's just like they're just so fun and irreverent. And my favorite good beer week event ever is the professional wrestling that they do.
Yeah.
And I just laughed so much, man. Milk came out my nose, and I wasn't even drinking any fucking milk. I was drinking Fizzer. And
what are you putting up your nose, Hendo?
Fizzer. And I like it's a you know, it's a term of, you know. Anyway, I'm just fucking. I like Fizzer. Fizzer is great. It's just there's a company in Queensland called Fizz, which is selling a shitload of seltzer. Yeah, really.
So at some point they're going to clash.
This is so good because they've managed to somehow pick all of the flavors that remind me of my childhood.
Nice.
And you know, like fruit cup cordial and you know, pink flamingos and all that sort of stuff. Well, that's a Merida thing, but you know, it's just so well done. And you know, going to the wrestling is a hell of a lot of fun, mate. It's just laugh my ass off, you know. And I look forward to it every year. Great bunch of people, you know. I haven't had the chance to have a good session up at Moondog World. The last time I was at Moondog World was when the wrestling was on, when the place was under construction.
Looks a lot different now.
Yeah, well, you know, if they filled the bloody lagoon with Fizzer, I'd be swimming in it and fucking drinking it. I'll tell you what. And I'd probably get away with it too.
Yeah, probably.
Today, one of the things we were potentially going to have on our agenda was talking about brewery valuations. And I've been meaning to write this article for a very long time because it's something that I think people who own breweries should get their head around. And I wrote it today. I haven't put it on the blog yet because there's a bit of a process to go through, but it's almost 4,000 words just because it's just such a complicated topic. But and I agree with you with Moondog. I've always had very good experiences with them. One of the very first beers that Eddie got me when I was getting into craft beer was that really blew my mind about beer was that Henry Ford's Gerson Fjord one. And I was
Fjord,
like,
yeah.
What the fuck is this? It's so good. And then when we went to Melbourne, must have been in, God, I don't even know when it was, well before we started doing it. It kind of inspired us to do it. So it would have been in 2013, 2012, I don't know. Anyway, before Black Ops, we went to Moondog and somehow I got the details of one of the early investors in Moondog. And we knew nothing about, like we had no idea about how to value a brewery. Like I had absolutely no idea. We'd never raised money before. We wanted to build a brewery. Like we had no idea. And this investor, his name's Mark, was extremely generous. And he was like, you know, if you're ever in Melbourne, you know, I'll tell you how I came to be an investor in Moondog, show you through the brewery. And we went there, we met with him. We met with one of the founders. And this is a long time ago. They showed us the brewery, and back then they were making beer on that system that was basically like dairy vats.
Yeah, vats, yeah.
And that kind of inspired us to do the very first Black Ops. It's kind of educated me on brewery valuations, which is still something that people kind of know nothing about. Lukey from Currumbin was with me on that trip. And, that was something that inspired them to kind of build their brewery out of dairy vats, which they ended up doing and winning Gabs a few years later. So, yeah, they're Moondog. Double thumbs up.
Man, that dairy equipment. There was an amazing photo that I think they showed at a might have been at BrewCon or something like that when they talk about their startup, and there was like a photo of Josh and Jake and Carl, I think, and they got in their mash tun and they were nude in the mash tun bathing in it.
Amazing.
And they posted it on like the socials and that sort of thing, and people were commenting, "Are you going to make a beer from that water?"
Oh no.
It was so good, so good, then when the lockdown happened, when COVID first hit last year, we're all in lockdown. Mate, I survived on the Carl and Macca show, when they're doing their live streams on
and then
Twitch.
Didn't he end up hosting the was the Abers or
it was the Indies.
The Indies, yeah.
And it was just that, man, that was just hilarious, That's why I love the Moondog brand, because they're just given me so many good, funny, just laughable experiences. And, I fucking love them. Love them.
Awesome. All right. Well, okay. I'll answer the question as well, but your answers were bloody fantastic. I don't think I can do any better than those. I'm with you, Hendo. I don't think anyone's getting bought anytime soon. I think CUB have said they're not going to buy anyone else, and why would they? They've got all the best ones already. And then Lion have just got such a strong lineup. I think the Lion sale is going to be really interesting, because that'll be the real test. It's like Balter never pitched themselves as an independent beer brand. They never tied themselves to that. They were always going to just get bored and then, do well afterwards. Stone and Wood's going to be a really interesting one. If Lion, if someone can build an independent, staunchly independent beer brand like that and then sell to one of the majors, and the majors can make that into a massive brand for themselves, that's going to be a really big acid test. But that's going to take years before we know that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you. I don't think anyone interesting is getting bought anytime soon. No. But I do like the Moondog thing. But I hope those guys just stay doing their thing and get some investors and keep it going.
Yeah, and I think they probably will. Yeah. I think it's just you're right. There's nothing on the horizon. But it's I guess if you're a CUB executive or a Lion executive, you got to look at what juice is worth the squeeze. And who's the best. And to be honest with you, I think that's probably the gap in Victoria. But, there'll be someone else that'll pop up. And if someone takes Stone and Wood's place, it'll be really interesting in the market, who emerges, I guess, as that next industry leader in a lot of ways. Because I think that slate's pretty open at the moment.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, especially at that scale. Like that, they're just, I mean, I don't know it's been a long time since I've been to a pub in Melbourne and drunk beer, but like in anywhere near where I live,
me too, by the way.
Would have just right.
When this shit's over, everyone we should go to Melbourne and go to a pub and drink beer.
Oh, we totally should, and we should go to Moondog World as well.
Yeah.
Well, I owe the guys from Stomping Ground. Last time I went to Melbourne, I got Guy and Steve in a room with my podcasting equipment to record a podcast with them, and it didn't fucking work.
Fuck.
Yeah, it was.
That's why you're paranoid about it, aren't you?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Every time we end one of these episodes, I'm like, oh my God, if this recording doesn't work. But yeah, that is why. And those guys were so good about it. So if we are in Melbourne again, we can do an in-person show with them. I'd love to hear how they're going.
I'm keen.
Right, one more question before we go. We got to do 3 fan questions, otherwise the segment is incomplete. And this is relevant. How important is from Luke Cooper? How important are social and environmental impacts on running a brewery?
Cool. How important are they? I think they're becoming increasingly important. I think the next 10 years are going to be quite critical with regards to breweries and sustainability and that sort of thing. Brewing beer is a very energy and resource intensive proposition. Not only the actual process of making beer, all of the heating and cooling and water and energy usage and all that sort of stuff, but the fact that the food miles that go into it from the inputs and the food miles and the outputs, like getting malt from Germany by the ton, and then, some breweries export their beer halfway around the world. I think that as those sustainability things and as government regulation changes as well, I think it's going to change the business. I think we're in for a bit of a lumpy next 10 years. That's my rough call. It's not a prediction per se, but I think it's just a rough call that we've had some pretty good growth over the last 10 years. I think the next 10 is going to be a little bit lumpy, but still upward trajectory sort of thing. That's my thoughts on it.
I think that's a good one, and something I was thinking of maybe bringing up before when we're talking about Paktechs, because I know when we've talked about it, it's always been like, I know the trend is let's stay away from plastic, but there's a lot of shit when you're making beer that is not good for the environment, and that the plastic thing on the top of the 4-pack is one out of many things to work on.
Oh yeah, it's massive.
It's definitely going to be a big part, I think, of how we all operate going forward. And Hendo's right, and sort of saying the next decade is going to be a major shift. And I agree, it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster ride in terms of wants and capabilities, I think, as well. I think as an industry, we probably have a lot of people that want to do more in sustainability and are proactive, I guess, in the space, but then are hindered by, government regulations, cost effectiveness of things. It's from, I guess, of being in a growing production and manufacturing industry where it's getting more competitive, that I think there's going to be a time frame where breweries will get to a point they've got to make the decision about sustainability or profit, which is a really dangerous thing going forward. For us as a brewery, we put sustainability first, and at our size, we're capable of doing it, and we're constantly looking at it. But there's definitely parameters that stop us from being able to do more. So, Paktechs being one thing, but you're right, there's so many different components involved with it. It's kind of funny because today I was actually I was watching a webinar from one of the major retailers who noted that they'd done an industry-wide consumer, like a craft beer consumer survey, and that they anecdotally found that was no consumer preference for breweries that had a sustainable mindset currently versus fresh produce as well. So they basically said, in comparison to other products we sell, like fresh produce, where it's a major component, beer doesn't seem to have any direct correlation. So whilst consumers, I think there's definitely a fraction or a percentage that want to, it'll come down to consumer demand as well. I think consumer demand will grow as the whole conversation around sustainability and climate change and everything continues to grow. And it's definitely a generational change as well. But I guess I hope that eventually we have the capabilities to do more, but I don't think we're going to be able to do it straight away. I think it's going to be a long-term plan of bit by bit getting better, starting and not having to, I guess, sacrifice, unfortunately, profitability, because there's definitely businesses out there that, are already running thin margins. And if it's a choice of making money this month or saving the planet, they're most likely not going to be able to save the planet. So...
Mate, you guys have the best answers for shit. Ev's got to come on every week. He's a fucking pro, Hendo. Good guest recommendation, mate.
Thanks, Hendo.
That's 2 in a row now.
I'm less controversial than Maz.
Definitely less controversial. Yeah, no, I think your answers. Yeah, I think that profitability versus sustainability. Fine, sustainability has to come first, but if you run a business, the number one focus always has to be not going out of business, in my opinion. There's a lot of factors. There's a lot of things on the line when you run a business, and you got people's jobs, you've got your own livelihood, you've got suppliers, you're part of an ecosystem. To me, your number one job is to not go out of business. And I'm sure someone way smarter than me said that in a quote somewhere. If you're printing lots of money and profits, then it makes perfect sense to redirect those profits into something that's going to help the environment. But I do kind of struggle a little bit with the idea that like every brewery has to be, this is our biggest focus. We have to have this as this environmental thing as the biggest thing, when the reality is, you're running a business that's not making any money. You're constantly, you can't fucking sleep at night. You can barely make payroll. So I think there's got to be an opportunity for both. There's got to be somehow an opportunity for both. And that's something we struggle with. Like, I know when we started our kind of like program where we donate to charitable causes like every month, and we did it as a dedicated thing every month. It was about 2 years ago, but we were losing money at the time. So it was kind of like, okay, we can donate money to charity, or we can, increase our risk of going out of business, or we can do nothing. And we chose to do that at a small scale. And as we grow, you would hope if there is more profits, you can do a lot more, but you can't put too much pressure on companies to have that as their main focus, because I think companies have to operate in the environment, in the regulatory environment that they operate in. And their job, everyone plays a role in all of this. The business owner's job is to keep the business running. Yeah. And within the regulation. So I think it is going to be a big thing for sure. But I also think, running a company and keeping it afloat is a very big consideration as well. And there's probably frustration from people who work for breweries, people who consume the beer, that they're not doing enough, but there's also the realities of running a company that are difficult to deal with.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's us. That was good.
Hey, we did good.
I'm just nervous about the fucking recording not working, but other than that, I think we're good to go.
Yeah, right. Just process. Hey, Ev, thanks for coming on the show, mate. It was very insightful, and I think you're doing some great work there. With Paktechs, and be great to sort of catch up. In a few months, just to see how things are progressing there, and keep doing the good thing, mate. It's really good.
No, thank you fellas for having me on, and I guess give me a bit more of a platform to talk about it, because I do like to talk about it, to be honest with you. I think it's a big thing, and as we just talked about sustainability, it's these small things that'll make up big changes. The more of these sort of initiatives we can come together and work on will make a big change in the industry. So yeah, I'll definitely I'll keep you abreast with everything that's going on, and hopefully in a few months I'll have some good news around a national rollout, and yeah, just fingers crossed we can get up and running.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm keen to hear more, and thanks for saying that, Hendo, because I was thinking that the whole time he was speaking of it. So we should say thanks for this work he's doing, and we didn't get to it till the end. But yeah, thanks for what you're doing. I think it's great, and you're an awesome guest, and you're welcome back anytime. So cheers.
Thank you, fellas.